Welcome to another edition of Legend Sport Videos. So far, we've talked about mainly computer games, and I've shown, out of the park baseball, and gone through my search for a hockey simulator for my Figment universe. So today I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk about a board game. And the reason is that, I just got this in the mail yesterday. I had almost forgotten that I had pre-ordered it, but I got an email on Thursday, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, that it was coming, and then it arrived yesterday, which was Saturday. Today's a Sunday. It's a Sunday morning here. Um, the game is Highlight Maker Hoops from PLAAY Games, and so here's the box. It came yesterday, like I said, and I have several play offerings. I have History Maker Baseball, which is their baseball game. I also have Hockey Blast. I have Second Season, which is the football game. And I have Red, White, and Blue Racing, which is a NASCAR game. I enjoy all four of those games. The baseball game is probably the one I've played the most. I actually created a fictional season for History Maker Baseball that I actually sent to Keith Avalone, who's the man behind PLAAY Games, and he actually sent it out in one of the newsletters, and so it was available to the community for download. This was on Memorial Day, probably 3-4 years ago, maybe, something like that. And so one of the things I really like about PLAAY Games is the fact that they can support fictional. Fictional has always been something that I have been interested in doing, something that I've enjoyed. Obviously, I have my Figment League, which is, computer-based, although, to be honest, I've kind of built my own hockey and football simulations kind of at a lower level, and I'll talk about that in a future video about how I did some of the older things that I've done, just to kind of build some history behind these other sports. Baseball has always been the main focus. That was the first piece of that puzzle that was put together, and the other pieces weren't at least initially set up to be online leagues, because as I've mentioned before, and I feel like I mention this every time I do a video, there isn't a simulation for any other sport that offers the kind of in-depth and powerful editing features that Out of the Park Baseball gives you. So I'm talking about Out of the Park Baseball again. What I need to be talking about is History Maker Basketball, or in this case, Highlight Maker Basketball. History Maker Basketball is like the full play version of this game. This game is out first, and the way Keith describes this on his website is that this game is kind of your ESPN SportsCenter type recap of a game. So you're going to get full stats and things, but the way it's put together is designed more in a highlight fashion than a complete game, play-by-play, generate everything kind of fashion. That game is History Maker Basketball, which will be coming out later this year, and I plan on picking that one up as well. But I did buy this in a pre-order. I believe the day he first offered it, I jumped right on it. I bought the 1964-65 season with it because I am an old school guy. And even though that happened before I was born, believe it or not, I'm not that old. That season featured, it called out to me because there were only a handful of seasons available at launch. And that one really appealed to me because one of my favorite players has always been Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain was in the prime of his career in the mid-60s, and even though I never saw him play, he was always someone that I found really interesting. And then of course you had the Celtics dynasty. They were mid-dynasty, so those guys are in here as well in the season that I picked up. So you have Bill Russell and Tommy Heinsohn and Havlicek and the Jones guys, and just that entire team is just ridiculously talented, where they have probably 8 guys from that team are in the Hall of Fame or something like that. So plus you had guys like Oscar Robertson and Jerry Lucas and other players that are legends of basketball, and they're all in that season. So that one appealed to me a lot. And anything from the 60s or the 70s or even the 80s, that was, those are the eras that I'm most interested in. So that's why I picked this up. So I'm going to do an unboxing essentially and kind of go through the components. I do have my season in here. I haven't actually even separated the cards yet. So I'll probably do an unboxing, then I'll go offline, separate the cards, and go through kind of a little bit of a playthrough. I'm sure, some of the other YouTube channels will do probably a better playthrough than I will. I'm still new at this whole thing, and there are some really great channels out there that also do this kind of thing, looking at sports stuff. And I do still plan on talking about war games. Originally, my goal for this week was to do a war game. And then this showed up in the mail, so I figured, you know what? Let me get this out now because this is brand new, just came out. They're still not even selling it on the site yet. The pre-order period ended, and so you can't actually buy this at the moment, but it should be available, I believe, pretty soon. So without further ado, let's take a look at what comes in this box. Okay. So here we have Highlight Maker Hoops from play.com, or playclassic.com. Let me open this up here. So this is kind of the standard way these games come now. It's kind of got a sleeve, and then inside the sleeve is a box, and we open up the box, and we have our contents inside a bag. All right, so let's take a look and see what we've got here. The directions, or instructions rather, this is very important. And we have our bag of dice and pawns. So we have 3 white pawns, 3 black pawns, an orange pawn, a white die, and a black die. Here's a little note about the season I purchased. So it just tells you which players were on multiple teams. Wilt Chamberlain played 38 games with San Francisco and 35 games with Philadelphia. And at that point, the Philadelphia team was still fairly new to Philadelphia. They had moved from Syracuse. So there are a handful of guys, Connie Durkin, Wayne Hightower, Gary Hill, Barry Kramer, Bill McGill, Cotton Nash, and Paul Newman, who had moved from one team to another during the season. Okay, so this is something I've always liked about play games is the officials. History Maker Baseball has this as well. You have some referees, which I think is really neat. And some of these names I actually recognize. Mendy Rudolph, Earl Strom, Richie Powers. I recognize those names. Norm Drucker as well. So these were obviously NBA referees in the 64-65 season. They all have ratings on how they call a game, which is really cool. And then we have our player cards, which I have not punched yet, as I mentioned. So right at the top, we have the Celtics. You see Bill Russell, Sam Jones, Tom Sanders, Casey Jones, John Havlicek, Tom Heinsohn, Willie Knowles, Larry Siegfried, John Thompson. That is the John Thompson who went on to become a Hall of Fame coach at Georgetown. Mel Counts, Ron Bonham, and then we started with Cincinnati. We've got Oscar Robertson and Jerry Lucas, Wayne Embry, Jack Twyman, so on and so forth. Nothing on the back. We get to Philadelphia here. There's Wilt Chamberlain's 76ers card right there. And I'll get into what all the symbols and terminology here means in a bit when we look at the rules, but these are the cards. So you got the Sixers, you've got the Knicks, the Lakers. So yeah, the Lakers would have Elgin Baylor. Dick Barnett was on the Lakers at that time. He is probably a little bit better known for his time with the Knicks. Let's see. We have Lenny Wilkins with the St. Louis Hawks at the time. Bob Pettit, another Hall of Famer. There's Richie Guerin, who was on the Hawks at that time. He's a little bit also more famous probably as being a neck. Cliff Hagan. Walt Bellamy with Baltimore. Kevin Lockery, a lot of people know him as a coach, probably. Let's see, we're still in Baltimore. There's Dave DeBusschere of Detroit. Rod Thorne, another coach and NBA front, well, not NBA league office guy. Guy Rogers here. We're in San Francisco now. We have Nate Thurmond. And then there will be another Wilt Chamberlain card for his time with the Warriors. There he is right there. Al Attles, Wayne Hightower, and so on. And then here we have the coaches. And obviously right here is the legendary Red Auerbach. Here's Dave DeBuscher. He was a player coach for Detroit, as was Richie Guerin, a player coach in St. Louis. Dolph Shays, Harry the Horse Gallatin, Knicks coach. The Knicks actually have two coaches here, Eddie Donovan and Harry Gallatin. Then we come to some boards. So this is essentially the play board, or the lineup card, where you put the visiting starters, the home starters, and then the bench and coach would be in these two lower boxes. And we have the scoring grid, because this is a highlight maker, not history maker. This is the condensed version. The football game has something called Second Season Express, which is kind of a similar concept where you can generate quick results as opposed to a full play game. So this is, somewhat equivalent to that. It's a little bit different, but this will show from mid to high pro scoring a grid based on your number here of a scoring range, basically, right? And then on the other side we have the mid to low scoring grid. Same thing for a lower scoring contest. Then we have the high pro scoring. So you have, and low on the back. So you have low, mid-low, mid-high, and high. So there's 4 different scoring levels in the game. Then we have another play aid here with final minute, some putback stuff, some things for floor play and shot taking, defensive checks, unusual results, and so on. These are strategy cards, which if you're playing 2-player, you can use these coaches' strategies. And there's 2 of those, obviously, 2 teams, 2 coaching strategy sheets. And then we have basically fast action cards. So there's a series of these. They're all they'll have different categories essentially. But on the back, this is the back, right? So when you have these punched in, stacked into a deck, obviously this is the side you see until you flip it to find out what you're getting. And so here we have floor cam, and then we also have more floor cam here, and hoop cam. The Maker series uses like television terminology, so like History Maker Golf, History Maker Baseball, you'll see things that have cam in the name. Red, White, and Blue Racing has it as well. So it's just kind of a thing to think about. Like Keith's games are big on story, and these play into that. These play into, developing the story of the game. So we have hoop cam. We have some more hoop and floor cam here. Then we have bench cam. So these would be things where the coach would have some kind of impact on the action. And more floor cam and bench cam, because there's 2 sides, right? So here's bench cam with coach, floor cam, ref look, and hoop cam, pick, snag, unusual plays. So there's quite a large variety here. And then at the very bottom we have more player cards. These are the final 4 teams from the NBA last season. So the 2020-2021 season, the conference finalists. So you have the Suns and the Clippers from the West, and the Atlanta Hawks and the Milwaukee Bucks from the East. And then we have a couple of score sheets that obviously you would make copies of this because they give you 2. You can also create your own, of course. So you have your running score and the players and their highlights, essentially. And so that is what's inside the box for History Maker Hoops. What I am going to do now is I am going to go and I am going to punch out my cards and kind of peruse the rules a little bit more than what I've already done, because I have done it to some extent, but not as much as I would like to know them before I actually play the game. And then I'll do a little bit of a playthrough, just maybe a little bit of it, just to kind of show what this game is all about. So stick around, that's coming up in a second. It's the beauty of technology. I'm going to pause my recording, do what I need to do, and then we'll pick things right back up right here after another second. So let's get this going. So I elected to go with a Celtics versus Warriors. So here are the Celtics. And basically when you set this up, you pick your 5 starters. So I have Russell, Sanders, Sam Jones, Casey Jones, and Tom Heinsohn. And you set them in the top box for visitor. I have the Celtics as the visitor. And then you have the rest of the team here. So coach card on top and the bench, Havlicek, John Thompson, etc. down through the Larry Siegfried, Willie Knowles, down through the rest of the team. Okay, they go there. And for the Warriors, I liked it to go with pre-trade. So Will Chamberlain is on the team, along with Nate Thurmond, Guy Rogers, Tom Meschery, and Al Attles. That's our starting 5 for San Francisco. And then on the coach card, we have Alex Hannum. And then the bench, going through all their players. Now, let's take a look real quick at Will Chamberlain's card, right? So the circle with the underline indicates that he plays pretty much every game. And then these qualities here. So you have play, rebound, and shot. The more that they have, it generally means the more impact they'll have on the game. Things that are underlined is like an overpowered quality. So obviously Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell is the same way, was one of the best rebounders in the history of the NBA. So under the rebound, a lot of his qualities are underlined. Everything but grab is underlined. And if we look at Russell has the leap ability, which Chamberlain does not have, and that's the only one he has that's not underlined. Everything else is underlined. And then on the play, he has some qualities as well. So these play in when you're resolving a play on the FAQ. These qualities will come into play. And the same down here with referees. This is where referees play in. Clank is missed free throws, and then experience. Icon just basically means that he's a veteran. So based on that, once this is set up, we have to set up our pawns, which is how we track the scoring, because again, this is a highlight game. It's not a every play, track all the statistics and everything. That's what History Maker will be more in that vein, where you'll get statistics for the players. This basically is going to take us through the game, looking at big events in the game, highlights of the game, and then giving us a final score. So to set that up, the first thing we do is the black pawns are for the home team and the white pawns are for the visiting team. So we put a pawn on the 0. This is the scoring track. And then this works with a grid that will determine what the score is throughout the game. So at each quarter, and actually you can resolve it at any point just by cross-referencing these numbers with the grid, and I'll get into that in a moment. But essentially you start at 0, and then each one of these represents a certain amount of points, and then there's also a free throw bonus that we'll get into again in a moment. So you also put him on the 5 on the scoring track, because this is the cap essentially for the quarter, so you don't end up with ridiculously overscored quarters, because there's a scoring adjustment mechanic in this game as well, which will either move up or down your score to kind of keep things in a realistic vein. So the next step is to determine, and this comes from the sheet with our season. So here here in the middle, you have the scoring grid information. This basically determines which scoring grid. There are 4 of them that will determine how many points are scored in the game. So this is based on, the average number of score, basically the average score of an NBA game in the 1964-65 season. So it tells you the average score during the 64-65 season was 110.6 per team per game. So to determine which scoring grid you should use, roll the black and white dice before each game, reading the black die as the 10 and the white die as the 1s. So if we roll an 11, we use the high. If we roll 12 to 61, we use mid-high, 62, 66, mid-low. The only one we can't get is low, because the 60s were a high-scoring era of the NBA. So we're going to get mid-high most often, mid-low occasionally, and we'll only use high if we roll an 11. So obviously that's rare. So we have our 2 dice right here. So I'll roll these, and black will be the 10s, and the white will be the 1s. And we get a 42, which is right firmly in the middle of the mid-high. So here's our mid-high grid. So when we look at these numbers here on the scoring track, right, here's 0, and then you have 0 through 20, and you have on the top 1 through 20. And then we have this free throw track down at the bottom. So what we're going to do is, wherever these end up on the scoring track, so if it ends up, 14 and 13, let's say, you would look 14 and 13, and it's a 117, 117, in which case the free throws would actually help determine what the final score was. So that's what this does. And so we put this here, and then we use our final 2 pawns, red and black pawns, to put our free throw track. So we do this, and now we have everything set up for the game except for the facts. So here's our fact deck. Okay, a lot of cards here. What we do is we count off 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 facts per quarter. Okay, this is a fairly quick playing game. We put these on the deck spot here on the card. And I'll set the rest of them down. Okay, I already shuffled these. So the way playing works is pretty straightforward. What we're going to do is we're going to flip a fact, and then we're going to look at what's on the fact, and that will determine, it will drive some kind of action, which will determine if we move our scoring track for either team. So if I flip this first one, we always look at the one that's up, facing you, because each fact has 2 results on it. So we always want the one that's not inverted. So we have floor cam, visitor player with defense reach. Okay, so what that means is we look at the visitor player, in which case this is Bill Russell. Does he have the reach attribute? And he does. So we see here on his card, reach, and it's underlined, which indicates that it's an overpowered one as well. So the underline comes into play when both players have the quality, and it's a check that involves the quality for either guy. If one had the underline and one didn't, the guy with the underline wins. So in this case, we're only looking at the visitor, which is Russell. Does he have the reach? He does. So then we follow to the next part. It's a blocked shot. If it's underlined, the visitor scores. And if it's not, the home would score. Okay, so visitor player does have reach. It is underlined. So he blocks Wilt Chamberlain's shot, and the Celtics score on the other end. So then to resolve that, we then move the Celtics scoring up by 1 track. So now they're a 1, and it's 1-0. And we move to the next fact. But before we do that, we rotate. And if a team doesn't score, you rotate only the team that didn't score. So the team that gets scored upon, you rotate to the next player in their team deck, which in this case would be Nate Thurmond. The guy who scored stays. So Bill Russell generated a block, which led to, I would assume, a fast break and a bucket for the Celtics. The Celtics get 1 score on the scoring track. The Warriors get nothing, and Wilt Chamberlain gets rotated to the bottom. Okay, so that's kind of the basic process. Is you flip the fact, you read it, it's going to drive the action based on what it says and what the cards that are active also say. So we flip our next fact. This is hoop cam, and it says push, and there's a hand here as well, which indicates that the defense, the defense can take, can affect that. Let me find it here so I can explain this a little better. The hand symbol gives the defending team's active player a chance to deny a score. Okay, so first we have to determine which player is the active player and which player is the defensive player. So based on that, we look at push, okay, with a lightning symbol. The lightning symbol is based on momentum, and momentum in this case belongs to the Celtics because they just scored and the Warriors did not. So if the Celtics were to win, or it's a tie, it goes to the momentum team, and we are going to have a tie here. It's the push quality is what we're looking for. Both Thurmond and Russell, under rebounding, have the push quality, and it is underlined in both cases. Therefore, it's a tie. Now, because of the Lightning, we get the advantage goes to the person with the team with the momentum, which would be the Celtics and Bill Russell. The text here says battle for the rebound, some pushing under the hoop. So basically, Thurmond and Russell are battling for a rebound. The Celtics have momentum, which gives Russell the advantage. However, because we have this hand symbol, that means the defender, in this case Thurmond, can deny it. We're looking for the deny chart here. Okay, so we're going to roll the dice and see if, so since Russell wins the check based on the lightning symbol, we then would roll one die and check for this quality here. Okay, you probably can't see it, but a 1 would be a skill, 2 is quick, 3 power, 4 reach, 5 smart, 6 spark. So let's see what we get. We get a 5, that's smart. So now if Thurmond has the smart quality, then he denies the shot. And in fact, Thurmond does have the smart quality, and so the shot is denied. So in that case, even though Russell won based on the lightning symbol, it's denied by Thurmond's defensive ability, essentially, and neither team scores. And in that case, we flip both players, rotate both players back to the bottom, like so. Okay, so we're ready to move on to the next fact here. We have Rogers and Sanders. We flip. We get floor cam. Visitor player with defense power. Okay, so the visitor, again, is the Celtics. And we look at Sanders' card. And he does indeed have power. Okay, so the power rating leads to a stuff, and it says underlined visitor scores, no underlined home scores. Okay, so Sanders has power, but it's not underlined, so therefore home scores, and we move this up to 1, so it's now 1-1. And we believe in this case we would flip Sanders to the bottom. So now we have Sam Jones and Guy Rogers, and the Warriors are in control. So we flip this again, and now we get a floor cam ref look. So what this means is basically a free throw opportunity. Okay, so this one says, it just says and 1. So it does not indicate anything, but it does have a check mark as far as what team. So on the check mark symbol facts, you'll compare the ref symbols of the 2 active players, home and visitor, to see who fouls whom. The ref symbol is located at the bottom of each player's card. Okay, so here we have, let's look at Sam Jones. He has a circle star under ref. And Guy Rogers has nothing. So we see Jones has circle star, Rogers has nothing. So there's kind of a pecking order for the symbols, and the highest is the circle star with an underline. then there's circle star, there's clover, and then there's the blank, and the lowest would be a what's it called, a blast, I believe, burst symbol, which indicates the player has a propensity for committing a foul. So that's obviously a bad attribute to have. So in this case, we're looking for the player with the better ref rating, and that would be Sam Jones in this case. So if one player's symbol is superior to the others, that player shoots the free throws. If both active players have the same symbol or no symbol, then the home player would shoot. So in this case, we look at the shooting player's clank rating, which is next to the ref symbol. So that's right here, and it's a 7. So what that means is we roll 2 dice, and we add them together, and that will give us a number. And if that number is a number from 2 to 12, obviously, and if that number is a 7, then it's a miss. Otherwise, he makes it. So we roll this, and we get an 8, a 5 and a 3, which is hard to say, but there it is, 5 and a 3, so that's an 8. Now this one says and 1, so it says when there's an and 1, the player is fouled while shooting and makes a basket. In and 1 situations, move the pawn 1 space down the scoring track, and the foul player shoots 1 free throw. So this means that the Celtics go to 2, and the Celtics also get 1 for the made free throw. So that number, the free throw number, gets added to the score at the end of the quarter. So once we finish going through our 10 facts, the quarter will be over. We'll know how many free throws or how many points to add to each team from free throws that also will go cross-reference on the grid to get their score at the end of the first quarter. So once we do that, we rotate both players to the bottom here. So both Rogers and Jones rotate. So now we have Casey Jones for the Celtics and Tom Meschery for the Warriors. And we move on to the next card. Now this is a hoop cam leap with a lightning symbol. The lightning again is momentum, and in this case the Celtics, having just scored, have the momentum. So hoop cam leap, goes upstairs to get it, and in it says, so the first thing we want to check is the leap. So who has a leap quality? Both players actually have the leap quality, but because of the lightning symbol, the tie would go to the Celtics, even though this says home. So Celtics get a bucket here. Because let me actually read what it says about the lightning symbol. Lightning bolt symbol. Some hoop cam qualities are preceded by a lightning bolt symbol here in the rules. The symbol captures momentum. We call it lightning status, and it only matters if a team scored on the previous fact. Okay, and the Celtics did score on the previous fact on the and 1 on the ref check. So once that happens, if the team did score on the previous fact, the lightning bolt symbol gives them exclusive rights to the named quality on the fact. The other player's card is not factored in. So even though Meschery does in fact have the leap quality, because the momentum belongs to the Celtics, only Casey Jones' rating in that category matters. So in that case, we get a score for Boston, and they move up to 3. The Warriors are still at 1, so Boston is doing quite well in this game. Now we, after the lightning symbol, I assume we rotate the same way. So the scoring player stays, the non-scoring player would move down. So Meschery has been replaced now as the active player by Al Attles. And we move to the next fact, and this fact is a floor cam. Home player with defensive reach, and that would be, so the home is obviously the Warriors, and we look at Al Attles' card, and he does not have reach, so there is no reach quality on his card, so he does not have the quality. That quality would be under play, in the play column. Yes would be a blocked shot, according to the card. So yes blocked, underlined home scores, no visitor scored. So he does not have the quality, let alone an underlined version of the quality. Therefore, Boston scores again. And now Boston goes to a 4, and we rotate again, and that brings Wilt Chamberlain back to the top. So now we still have Casey Jones as our active Celtic player, and Wilt is our active Warrior player. We flip our next fac. Floor cam ref look again with the check mark, okay? Same as before, okay? 2 shots and referee warning, discard next fac. So we're going to actually lose a fac card in this quarter. So our ref look again with the check mark. So the check mark would indicate that we look at each player's referee rating, right? So Wilt, as people who remember Wilt Chamberlain well know, he was not a good free throw shooter, but he did shoot a lot of free throws because teams would foul him. Kind of the old school version of the Hack-a-Shaq strategy, and even the Hack-a-Shaq strategy is now old school because Shaq's been retired for a while. But he does have, as we see here, the circle star, while Casey Jones is blank under ref. He has nothing on his card in that category, so that would automatically go to Wilt. So now Wilt's clank rating is terrible. It's 2 to 6. So we roll 2 dice. If it's 2 to 6, he misses. So we'll roll. We got a 5, so the first one's a miss. And we roll again because it says 2 shots, and it's a 7, so he made 1. So we move this up, and now it's 1 for the Warriors. And we discard this card because it said that the ref gave a warning. So that card is now ignored, and we move to the next one, which is a hoop cam, and I forgot to move Casey Jones here. So we now have Heinsohn and Chamberlain as our active players. Hoop cam leap, so we're looking for the leap quality. Leap and grab and slammed home, and we have trailing if it was tie. But if we look at the cards, Wilt does not have the leap quality. Tom Heinsohn does have the leap quality. So Heinsohn would win this particular check. And therefore he would leap, grab the rebound, and slam it home, which again gives Boston another score. So they're up to 5 now. And you see the 2 pawns, right? We have a cap of 5. They cannot actually... they can go beyond it, but we're going to have to make an adjustment if they get any more. And we're down to a few 3 facts left, I believe. So we're getting close to the end of the quarter here. All right, so we'll rotate Wilt down to the bottom because he was scored upon, and we bring Nate Thurman back as our active player. Now we flip our next fac, and this is hoop cam push, okay? Both Heinsohn and Thurman have the push quality, and it's underlined in both cases, which it's a push on the push, essentially, right? They're tied. In that case, we look at the symbol here to break the tie, and the symbol is a home symbol, so that would mean it would go to the Warriors because they are the home team, so we'll move the Warriors to 2, and we rotate Heinsohn to the bottom and make Bill Russell again the top guy. So now we have Russell and Thurman, our 2 big men. We flip our next fac. Now we have coach timeout. So when we get a coach under the bench cam, the bench cam focuses on coach involvement and ability. The first coach reading is always assigned to the home team, and after that it alternates. So this would be applied to the Warriors, and this it says timeout. So when a coach fast action card occurs, a player from the coach's team reserves checks into the game and is placed on top of the team deck. There can be more than 5 players in the team deck, right? These each have 5. Don't remove a player to make room. So now we take our Warriors team deck, and here's Alex Hannum. He's our coach. Underneath Hannum is McCoy McLemore. He's going to check in, and he goes right on top. So he's going to go on top of Thurman. And then we come back here, and we put that down. And after the sub has checked in, resume the game by rolling 2 dice and adding them. Compare the sum against the numerical values printed on the coach's card. So looking again at Alex Hannum's coach's card, We see 2 to 4 is energized, 7 is clash, 9 to 12 is complacent. Okay, so we're going to roll the 2 dice, and then we'll see what we get for an effect. So we roll our 2 dice, and we got an 11, which is hard for you to see, but there it is, an 11. Okay, so 11 is complacent. Now, complacent or clash, the coach's strategy fails and the other team scores. Okay, so in this case, that would actually move the Celtics up to 6. So we'll do that. The subbed-in player rotates to the bottom while the opposing team's player remains active. So McLemore will now rotate to the bottom, and Thurman becomes active again. And Russell remains active for the Celtics. Okay, so we have 1 card left for our quarter. And we flip it, and we have another coach card. So this one would apply to the Celtics because they alternate, right? First one goes to the home team, and then it alternates. So in this case, we're going to look at Red Auerbach. So he's got a 3 sync, 4 to 8 energize, 11 to 12. So obviously a 2 isn't on his card. And what happens in that case, if the dice roll does not correspond to any of the coaching results, the game resumes without an immediate score. Rotate both the subbed-in player and the opponent's active player to the bottom and reveal the next fact. So we will roll on Auerbach, but first we have to put John Havlicek in the game. He's our 6th man. Here's Havlicek, right? And we'll put him right on top. And now we roll against Auerbach's card. And he got a 3, which means sync, okay? So if we look in the rule book again for sync, so if an energized or synced result is rolled, the coach's strategy works and the subbed-in player creates a score. Move 1's place down the scoring track. The subbed-in player remains the active player, and the other team's player is rotated to the bottom. So that one moved them to 7. They had an excellent quarter. And we rotate Thurman to the bottom, making Guy Rogers our active Warrior player for the start of the second quarter. So we're at the end of the quarter now, and this is where we determine what our score is, right? So each team has 1 on the free throw track. So I'm going to take these off just because I need to look at the grid here. Okay, so here's our grid, and the Celtics had 7, and the Warriors had 2. So how do we calculate the scoring based on that? So if we check our handy-dandy rule book, the current score of a game can be calculated at any time, but it's easiest and least intrusive to do it at the end of the quarter. That's what we're doing, right? So we cross-reference it to the scoring grid, right? So we're using mid-high. The visiting team's track is on 7, and the home is on 5. That's where home is on 2 rather. That's where we are. So we cross-reference 7, and 2. Actually doesn't exist. Oh, it's 7 and 2. 7 and 2. So that would be 53-33. But we have to make an adjustment because they were not really supposed to be able to go above 5. So what happens in that occurrence, a scoring adjustment section here in the rules, okay, because this is a sports board game and not real basketball, the random distribution of facts can sometimes produce unrealistic short-term scoring results. So what you do is the scoring cap, if either team hits its cap, the quarter was supposed to end. See, I screwed that up. The quarter was supposed to end. If more than one fact is left unused, award a space on the scoring track to the other team. So effectively what that would have done is moved the Warriors to 3, and they would be at 5. So it's 5-3 plus 1 each for the free throw. So we have 5 and 3. It's still a really high scoring quarter. It's 41-33. Then we add 1 for the Celtics free throw to make it 42. The Warriors get 1. So it's 42-34 after the first quarter. Like I said, a very high scoring quarter. Okay, now we would take our discards and put them off to the side. We have our fact deck. We would do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for our next quarter, and we put them here. And it says you're supposed to take the deck, split it in half, and rotate it so that you get, the top and the bottom. You invert them. But that's what we would do to start another quarter. Rather than play the whole game, I'm just going to jump to the end. And we're going to look at the final minute mini game, which is here on the back, right? So we have a final minute, and here's the countdown timer. We use our last pawn, right? If we put that on there, right? So what we do in the final minute, instead of resolving the final minute with a single fast action card, you can use the following process. This is for when a game is within 4 points, okay? If it's not within 4 points, then this doesn't really factor in, and it's quicker and simpler to, if the game isn't close, to just kind of resolve it with the regular routine. So you start the segment by rolling both dice and adding them, and then this will serve two purposes: to determine how much time elapsed and determine what action occurs. So if we roll this, okay, if we take this, we say we had a 6, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We move that down. And the 24-second clock, so if we start at 1, 24 seconds from 60 is 36, so we will put this on the 36-second mark, I guess, or maybe the 37. There's 12 numbers in each row here. Then read the appropriate result from the floor play section. So 6, active offense player takes poor shot or works the ball, and there's a double asterisk there that says average shot if the ball's been worked around at least once, which it has not. This is our first one. So let's just say Havlicek is the active player. We're at the end of the game. He has the opportunity to take a poor shot or to work it around. So, normal rules. Okay, so we're going to rotate both guys here. So now we have Russell and Meshery. So after we rotate, if a team chooses to forego a shot and work the ball, both active players rotate. On all missed shot, both players will rotate. Okay, so now we roll again, and we get a 7. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and a 7 is active offense player takes poor shot with 2 asterisks again, or attempts to enable, go to result 10 or 11 to resolve enable. Okay, so enable means you roll for the active player on enable line above, which is up here at the top. Whoops. Up here at the top, and then that would result in one of these skills being checked on the player card. Bill Russell's our active player card. He has a lot of skills. He would be covered in all of these situations, basically. Or with the 2 asterisks, we can actually get an average shot for Russell. So just because it's a little bit more interesting, I'm going to go with the enable option. So we're going to roll on the enable line above. I'll take my black die, I'll roll it. We get a 1, so that's skill. So he does have the skill quality. So if the player has the named offensive quality, move choice player to the active position for an open shot. So let's just say we want to have Tom Sanders take the shot. Okay, so he has an open shot now. Now, to resolve a shot, so there are 3 kinds of shots: poor, average, and open. Some shots are upgraded if the ball's been worked, right, which is what we already did. So the shot-taking chart, which is here, this is the shot-taking chart, okay? Open shot, roll 1 die, 1 to 3, good. Player jukes on a 6, okay? So let me roll 1, we'll roll the black, we got a 2. Okay, so the 1, 2, that's a good shot, so they scored. All right. Now, since they scored, let's just move that there. And they're on 0. Okay, so the Celtics have scored. and we reset. So that would be 12. So now we're down to the Warriors had the ball 24 seconds. The Celtics have one bucket. The Warriors have none. And we start the process again. And we would rotate the Warriors because they were scored on. And that puts Adels as our active player. The Celtics get to keep Sanders because he scored. We roll our 2 dice again. We got a 4 and a 4, so that's an 8. Under foreplay for 8, we get active offensive player takes poor shot or works ball. So this is the same situation, right? So on a poor shot, just for the shot taking chart here, if you have to roll a 1 to score on a poor shot. And we also need to move this 8 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so there's 39 seconds left. Let's just assume the score was tied, okay? So the Celtics are up by 1 bucket right now. We're going to work the ball again. And so when we go to rotate, we're going to rotate both teams. And Sam Jones and Adels will now make Wilt Chamberlain our active Warrior. Okay, now we roll again. We got a 4 this time. So we move out clock 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 35 seconds left. A 4 is denied. 4 or 5 denied question mark on the chart. Roll for an active defender on deny line above and subtract deny roll from clock. Okay, so does so the deny or enable is this line at the top. We roll the dice. It's a 4. 4 is 1, 2, 3, 4 reach. So we look at Sam Jones, and we're looking for reach, which would be under the play column, and he does not have that quality. Okay, so he is not able to deny. So if the defender has it, he creates a turnover. Otherwise, active player takes average shot or works the ball. All right. So on an average shot, you need 1 or a 2, or you can work the ball again. We will let Will take a shot. Okay, so he needs a 2, a 1 or a 2 to score. And we got a 4, so he misses. Okay, so if you take a shot and you miss, all missed shots are contested rebounds. Rotate both players on both teams. Rotate both teams. Right, so we go from Sam Jones to Casey Jones, and from Wilt to McCoy McLemore. And now, according to our chart, we roll again, and we check equality. It's a 6, so we're looking for pick, and we're subtracting 6 seconds off the clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're looking for pick, and neither player has that. So if both or neither have the quality, roll a die again. 2-point miss, it goes to the home on a 1 or a 2. It goes to the trailing team on a 3 or a 4, and it goes to the defense on a 5 or a 6. So we roll our dice. We got a 5, so it goes to the defense, which means the Celtics now have the ball. Okay, so 29 seconds. We got 5 seconds with the 24-second clock. We roll our dice again. We get a 2 and a 6 for an 8. So we take 8 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And was I supposed to rotate? It doesn't say to rotate. So I'm going to leave these guys here because it didn't say to rotate them. So it's still McLemore and Casey Jones. And an 8 is active offense player takes a poor shot or works the ball. So again, we're gonna rotate and work the ball. So we rotate, and it comes to Thurmond and Tommy Heinsohn. Tom Heinsohn, who just like me is from Jersey City, New Jersey, and Nate Thurmond. So in this case, we're just resetting, right? We rotated the ball, we moved the ball, we got a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're down to 16 seconds. And a 5 is a denied check again. So we're going to roll on Thurmond for the deny up here at the top. It's a 4, so we're looking at reach. He does have it, and it's underlined, okay? So if the player has the if the defender has the player, he causes a turnover. Otherwise, the active player would take an average shot. So Thurmond got the turnover. It's now the Warriors' ball, and we can remove the shot clock because we're under 24 seconds. And the Warriors have the ball. And on turnovers, so create a turnover, roll a die, and subtract that many seconds. Okay, if the defender, it's a turnover, go to rotate and then the floor play. Okay, so if it has the quality underlined, which Thurmond does, it's a turnover and either an automatic 2-point basket or an open shot for a 3-pointer for a choice teammate. This was 64-65. There were no 3-pointers. So in this case, we are going to take the automatic 2-point bucket, which actually ties the game again. Okay, and I think I had to roll one die to take 6 seconds off here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're down to 10 seconds. So we're going to roll our 2 die, add them together. We got 6. So this is now the Celtics ball. I'm going to rotate them and put Havlicek is now the active player because they were scored on, so they get rotated. 6 seconds come off the clock, so we're down to 4. And a 4 or 5 is again a deny check. So we roll one die. It's a 3. We look for power on Thurmond, which he does have, but it's not underlined. So he creates another turnover. Now we roll a die, and it's a 4 actually. So that would actually stop. That would actually run the clock out, and the game would go into overtime. I'm not going to actually resolve overtime because this has gotten very long, much longer than I thought it would. And I think that in general the game typically would flow a lot more quickly than this. I was checking rules and things because this is actually my first real playthrough of the game. But you get an idea of how the flow works, right? Basically, you're using the fast action cards, getting some kind of action based on. You'll get a floor cam, a hoop cam, or bench cam. Here's bench cam, and you have a coach. Maybe on the bench cam you get a coach. You could get some kind of hoop cam is action around the rim, is the way it's described in the rules, which makes sense. That's why it's called hoop cam. Floor cam would be more just action out in the open on the court, and so on. More of a wide angle type of look. And this game will let you generate a final result with some highlights, so you can say, well, Havlicek did, Havlicek stole the ball or whatever it may be to help the team win, right? And you can use the score sheets, which I put somewhere and I don't see them offhand, but the score sheets would, you can mark down the highlights of the game. So again, this is more like a Sports Center type recap of the game. These are the big important moments of the game rather than something that's going to generate a whole bunch of statistics. History Maker Hoops, when that comes out later this year, will be the one that would actually let you play out the game in its entirety and figure it out and get stats and everything. So in general, this was an interesting take. I know Keith worked really hard on figuring out the intricacies of basketball because there is a lot of action in basketball, and obviously when you play a full play basketball game like a Status Pro or Stratomatic or whatever, where you're resolving every single possession, those games take a long time. They might take as long in some cases as an actual basketball game would take, even without accounting for halftime and TV timeouts and everything. So the goal that Keith had for this was to kind of generate something where it was more like a game recap and a final score. So that's what this gives you. And then once History Maker comes out, I plan on buying that as well, and then I can go through that because these cards for the players, they work exactly the same way. So, you know, a lot of these qualities and the symbols, we didn't use any of the symbols in this game, but they will be used in History Maker. So I'm going to put those back. We also didn't use the actual referee cards, and again, these would be used in the full game. And so that is Highlight Maker Hoops. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe this will help you decide whether or not this game might be right for you.